Sure, mine is incredibly simple.
Okay.
It's been on my mind a lot recently because I belong to a skeptical group here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and we meet once a month and we talk about skepticism and rationality and stuff like that. But the issue that I want to confront you with is the principle of sufficient reason. So basically, it boils down in a nutshell, in layman's terms, that everything in the natural order has a perfectly reasonable explanation. There's nothing that's exempt, for example, from the laws of nature. There's nothing that gets a free pass. There's no magic fairy dust, okay, if you will. So I think that the atheist, the only honest and rational and self-consistent and self-respecting atheist, has to be a hard determinist where there is no free will, there is no morality, and there is no love, really. It's just the mechanical working out of a great, well-oiled machine. That's my proposition to you, and I'd like to hear your response.
How did you get to that from principle of sufficient reason to atheist?
Because everything has, in principle, an explanation. And if you're an atheist, you don't believe in the supernatural, presumably.
Okay, so actually that's not true, and you're mostly right. Atheists don't believe in a God. It's entirely possible that somebody could be an atheist and believe in the supernatural, but you are correct that we do not believe in the supernatural because there isn't sufficient warrant for belief in that. But what I don't, let's just go with, let's not even put a label on it. I don't believe in a God and I don't believe in the supernatural. What does that have to do with whether or not I accept that love is an observed part of reality, or that where your other things were a hard determinist? If the evidence is
no free will,
in opposition to hard determinism, I don't know why I'd have to accept that. But also when you went to free will and morality, I think in order to talk about those, we'd have to do some definitions, because depending on what kind of free will you're talking about, I don't believe in it.
Okay, I'd like to keep it really, really simple.
Me too.
And just acknowledge the fact that if there is nothing beyond the natural, nothing above the natural, and super just means above in Latin. So if there is no supernatural, if there's nothing above the natural, then everything is subject to natural cause and effect. And in principle, if we had the tools and if we had access to the subtle causes and effects, in principle, there's nothing that escapes the scientist's inquiry. You understand?
No, I definitely understand. And if you were to perhaps, it may be the case that if you were to have absolute knowledge of the position and spin of every particle in the universe, you could make perfect predictions. We don't know that to be the case. But the bigger issue here is that if everything has an explanation for why it is the way it is, that doesn't tell us anything at all about whether or not it necessarily needs to be a supernatural explanation. It could just be, for example, love is the label that we put on a complex variety of human emotions, experiences. We can identify things. It's not like a thing that exists unto itself. Matter of fact, it's a collection of different emotive behaviors and actions. We recognize that somebody does this and we label it love. It's not like love exists as some, independent thing. But let's say we had no explanation or understanding of this. To say that it must have a supernatural explanation, I don't know what the justification is for that.
No, I didn't say that. In fact,
if your statement is that if you reject the supernatural, you can have no explanation for these things, then you are in fact saying the explanation.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, if I could clarify, what I'm saying is that if it is the case that everything has, there's a good reason for everything, that everything has a sufficient reason or a sufficient cause. If it is the case, and I believe that it is, so it's a two-part conditional, and if there's no supernatural, then we must conclude that hard determinism is true, and that there is the illusion of free will, perhaps, and the illusion of love and the illusion of morality, but in fact, it's just a great, well-oiled machine. Now,
hang on, because you're starting with two ifs, and I don't know that you're starting with two ifs, and you're reaching conclusions that I don't think are truly derived from those two ifs, and we haven't even established if those two ifs are the case.
Okay, well, if we assume the opposite, let's say that there's something that happens in this universe that doesn't have a cause. Are you comfortable with that? I'm not.
Okay, well, first of all, it doesn't matter whether or not we're comfortable with something.
But do things just happen, or is there a reason?
I don't know how this is relevant. So let me get back to this.
Because I'm claiming that everything has a sufficient cause.
Sure.
It's a principle.
Okay, the idea that something has a sufficient cause is fine, but that doesn't mean you have. That doesn't mean that you know what the sufficient cause is or anything about it. Okay.
Right.
So
but there are two possibilities.
This is utterly.
There are two possibilities. Either it's
David.
natural. Either it's completely natural, or it's not. Right.
Either it's completely natural or it's not. Yes.
Right. Right. So if it is completely natural, then we can, with certainty, with logical 100% certainty, we can say that hard determinism is the state of affairs.
No, you can't, because hard determinism isn't necessarily the case, and soft determinism allows for quantum indeterminacy and stuff, which still doesn't violate the natural law. But saying
if it doesn't violate natural law, then it's hard determined. It's 100% determined.
What about quantum effects, like you just mentioned? What about
those are still natural.
They're still natural. They're subject to natural
law.
But
they're not deterministic.
They are deterministic. It's just our limited capabilities to measure and to intervene.
How do you know that?
Because I studied quantum physics, and we use statistical methods precisely because we can't know two or more qualities and attributes of these quantum.
Sure, but here's the thing. What I'm talking about is, yes, the explanation for any X is natural or it's not. Those are the only two options. Okay?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that if the explanation for X is unknown, that doesn't mean that it's supernatural or not natural, however you want to say it. And also,
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, what I'd like the atheist to do is to honestly consider that if there is no supernatural, then...
But that's not the atheist position. The atheist position is not there is no supernatural. My position as a skeptic is that I do not believe that there's anything supernatural because there has not been presented sufficient evidence to warrant that belief. It's not a claim that the supernatural doesn't exist. It's that we don't yet have evidentiary warrant to accept that it does.
I have evidence. I could provide you with evidence.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Provide the evidence for the supernatural. And why on earth would you call us instead of going after your Nobel Prize or your Templeton Prize?
The evidence is how nervous atheists get when I talk about determinism, because no one wants to.
Okay, David.
No one wants
David.
to not free, and that love is just a well-oiled machine, right?
David. How nervous atheist gets is utterly irrelevant. It's not an evidence for the supernatural. And first of all...
Could I complete my thought?
No. I'm going to complete mine first. You said that you could provide evidence for the supernatural, and you started off with something that is so boneheadedly irrelevant that it's incredibly frustrating. The idea that because a group of people who don't accept or reject, for example, the supernatural might get nervous when you bring up this doesn't mean that it's evidence for it.
Okay, let me restart.
I think you're confusing nervousness with rejecting your premises.
Let me put it another way to you, which would be less offensive, maybe.
It's not about offense.
We're not offended. I'm not offended.
Okay.
Make a damn argument and provide some evidence.
Okay. The damn argument I'll make is that if everything is caused by natural causes and there is no supernatural, then that means in principle that everything is 100% determined. You accept that much?
No, I accept that it's possible that may be the case, but not that it's demonstrable that it is the case.
I'm not convinced that there are things in the natural world that are random and not predictable.
Well, predictability depends on our level of knowledge, right?
I agree.
Methods are only a tool because of ignorance.
I agree.
That's why I say, in principle, we don't have the capability of even predicting weather in the future, and to a great extent. It's too complicated.
We have the ability to roughly predict weather. We can make predictions that are consistent with the information we have.
We can use generalizations and statistical approaches.
I agree. Please explain what the hell that has to do with your statement.
We know that there is the supernatural Because if there is no supernatural, then everything is natural. And that cannot be the case, because if it is the case...
David, write down what you just said. We know that there's supernatural, because if there's not, then everything is natural.
Yep.
Are you just going to spout irrelevant tautologies, or are you going to get to the actual evidence? You know what?
You cut me off.
Hey, David, we know that everything's natural, because if it wasn't, then the supernatural would be supernatural.
The other thing, if I could try one more thing with you before I go,
okay,
if it's possible, it would be the uncaused first cause. We know with certainty that there is an uncaused first cause.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't, David. No, we don't. We don't know that. We don't know that. First of all, I reject the notion that we know anything to an absolute certainty, so you're already engaged in some sloppiness there. But when you start talking about the second law of thermodynamics, it doesn't apply at the origin of the universe.
The laws of nature don't apply within the universe?
Within, yes, but we're talking about the origins of the universe. You're talking about an uncaused first cause. Well, you understand the laws of thermodynamics apply to closed systems, right?
Yeah, and the universe is a closed system.
Yeah, but the origin of the universe is outside of the closed system, right?
That's my God.
Okay, please tell me something about your God other than that it is a sufficient explanation for the origin of the universe.
He's self-existent.
How do you know that?
He has to be.
Okay, I'm not interested in these have to be's.
No.
I want to know how you know what you know about your God.
Because it's deduction, pure deduction. It's reason. Because if we posit the opposite, and say there's no first cause that's uncaused, then we have an infinite regressive cause.
So what?
And that cannot. And that cannot be. It's
you don't know that.
I do know that, because it's only a finite amount of time that would accomplish the heat death, and we haven't.
No. Your finite time and heat death apply to the local presentation of the universe. They don't apply. Time may not apply outside of the universe at all. Isn't your God timeless?
Yes.
So don't be talking to me about the properties of your God and saying that it must necessarily be a first cause because there hasn't been enough time in the local presentation of the universe. You're ignoring other potential hypotheses where the cosmos is in fact eternal.
Well, either there's an infinite chain of cause and effect,
okay,
or not, and if not, then there's a first uncaused cause. And
since we don't know which of those two is correct.
Well, no, we do know, because if we posit an infinite chain of cause and effect, that means that you and I literally cannot be here right now.
No, because
we are here.
So causality is necessarily temporal, correct?
Correct.
And time is a property.
Time begins with the universe.
Okay. So you can't talk about causality absent time, correct?
Well, we can talk about God causing the universe, yes. He's the first cause of the
you just said that causality was necessarily temporal, and if there's no time prior to the universe, under your model, then your God can't cause anything.
In the natural order. But God is the first cause.
How do you know?
Because if we posit the opposite and say there is no first cause, then that means infinite regress.
Yeah, I know, David, the fact that you are unwilling to accept something as a possibility doesn't mean that it's not the case. The correct position here is that we have no explanation for the origins of the universe. We're still working on it. But the theists want to pretend, through philosophical masturbation, that they have cracked the case.
But may I ask you a personal question? Do you believe that the universe has a beginning or no?
So it depends on what we mean by universe. The normal presentation of the universe, we can't investigate, the very earliest moments of it. But do I think that the cosmos may in fact be eternal? That seems to be a plausible explanation supported by Alan Guth and others that the universe, and in this context the cosmos, which may be a multiverse or anything else, may in fact be eternal. But the thing is, we cannot investigate that.
We can use reason. We can apply reason and deduction, no?
Okay, but reason is only applicable if you have something to actually point it to.
Base it on.
So what are the other universes in the multiverse like?
We don't know, but we do know that cause and effect governs everything.
Do we?
The material universe.
So if cause and effect is temporal and time is contained within our local presentation of the universe, you're asserting that other potential universes also have cause and effect.
Of course, because
How do you even know that they have time?
Well, if they don't have time, that doesn't bother me.
Okay, I don't care if it bothers you. You keep coming back to this. Your proof of this is that your proof of the one thing is because atheists are bothered by it. Your proof of another thing is that you're not comfortable with it. I don't care if you're comfortable with it. I care about what is actually true and reasonable to believe.
Right, but listen, the sum total of all the multiverses and all the strings and all the bouncing universes and everything that you can imagine, every wacky theory that any speculative philosophical scientists come up with, you can clump them all into what I call the universe. Maybe you call it the cosmos, I don't know, but I call it the universe.
Yeah,
I put all my universes into one universe, but to me, uni means one, so I just call it the universe.
Yeah, that's the way this started until we actually learned a bit more and learned a bit more about possibilities. So you have a God, right? You have a God that is your first cause. What do you know about this God?
I know that he's perfect he's infinite in every perfection, that it's better to have than to not have.
How do you know that?
I know that because of the principle that an effect cannot be greater than its cause. Right? And so when we observe the perfections in this
so when I light
world,
a fuse with a match, it can. All right, I'm not even going to go down that particular road. I want to know
you shouldn't, because you're going to look so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
An effect can't be greater than the cause. So, for example, when I light a match and put it to a bomb, we're not going to get an effect that you could look at it, and I understand where you're going. You could look at it as if the causal effect, or the proximate cause, the necessary and sufficient cause of lighting the match, produces something that is more significant. Now, it doesn't in any way violate the laws of nature, because the components of that bomb are what actually are causing the explosion. However, you're saying that God has to be perfect in every possible way. Is this an agent?
He's a person. He has personality. Yeah.
How do you know that?
Because I'm a person, and an effect cannot be greater than its cause. I know that God loves.
So basically, you're saying it's impossible for you to exist unless there was a God. That nature could not, through pure natural processes and chemicals, result in biological thinking agents.
No, if God blinked once, we would disappear.
Okay.
He's watching, and he's.
Guess how many times I'm going to blink. See,
you can blink as much as you want. You're not the necessary being. You're not the creator and sustainer.
Yeah, but I am the person who determines whether or not we're going to keep listening to unfounded assertions. So
no, but you're talking about the attributes of God, and the ancient Greeks came up with a lot of the attributes of God just using pure reason.
Yeah. They did come up with the attributes of God.
This is not.
I want to know whether or not. I want to know whether or not the attributes are accurate. Whether or not there's actually. What does God want?
God wants everything that's good.
And how do you know that? Is that just definitional as well?
Well, it all has to do with goodness, right? Like the things
what
that
is
you
goodness?
crave.
What is goodness?
Whatever it's better to have than to not have. Life, love, justice,
David, I'm done.
Beauty,
David, I'm done with your tautology parade.
Well, you're just asking me. I'm telling you. I don't know if you want mathematical proofs or what do you want, but
I'd like a definition that isn't just a tautology. The good things are those good things. They're not the bad things.
I can talk about the fact that God is not material because the material things are subject to change. They're composed of parts. All of this is well established over the past millennia.
It's well established in theological circles that they're desperate to find something, but I want to know what actually is. So you think that there's a God who is a person, and he wants goodness.
And he's perfect.
Yeah, he needs nothing, right? But what he created us gratuitously out of love, and he wants us to be with him and to be happy.
How do you know that?
How do you get from uncaused first cause to all of that stuff?
Well, I'm not just sitting in my living room in my armchair doing philosophy. I belong to the Roman Catholic Church, and I have a lot of revealed truths.
How are they revealed?
They're revealed by God through sacred tradition and sacred scripture.
What makes them sacred? How do you know that the traditions in scripture that you're saying are sacred are the right ones?
I have faith.
Okay, I'm not interested in positions that are based on faith, because faith is not.
Well, then that's why I was talking. That's why I was talking about
because faith is not a pathway to truth. But
I don't have faith in. I don't have faith in God the Father. I have faith in the Trinity. I have faith in the Incarnation. I have faith in infallibility.
I don't give a rat's ass if you have faith in your lucky rabbit's foot. I care about what's actually true and demonstrable. And if your position is that you believe these things based on faith, now we've entered a whole new realm.
The mysteries of faith that are revealed and that can't be known by the natural light of reason, I accept on faith, obviously.
Yeah,
but
that is absolute, I'm sorry, but that is absolute garbage. Every time I talk with Catholics in particular, the word mystery just keeps popping up. The mysteries.
Well, you're comfortable with mysteries?
No, I'm not comfortable with mysteries. That's the point. That's the point. That's the point of that is the point of going out and finding. Are you going to just keep talking to talk over me?
No, I was talking about the quantum thing. You're very comfortable with the mystery of the quantum world.
No, I'm not. God, are you able to understand anything that I'm actually saying? I'm saying that I'm not comfortable with not knowing, but I'm not so uncomfortable with not knowing that I'm going to make shit up to soothe myself, which is what religions do.
Well, if we could talk about the quantum thing for just a little bit.
No, we can't.
That we can agree.
No, we can't.
That either
it's
perfect.
David, I'm not a quantum physicist. I don't give a rat's ass, but I know some quantum physicists who disagree with you. Call them.
Yeah, there's a lot of different philosophical interpretations.
Yeah, and I want to know what's actually reasonable to believe, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
Then why would you take anything on faith? Faith is not a reliable path to understanding.
I trust the witnesses of Jesus Christ, and I've done a lot of research into it.
Why? Okay, first of all, you have no access to any of the witnesses. None.
What are you talking about? I have a few Catholic friends, not many.
What witness to Jesus Christ do you have access to?
I was confirmed in the Catholic Church in 2009, and the bishop that laid his hands on me, there's a paper trail going all the way back to Jesus Christ, the laying on of hands. From one...
Hey, you know what? I did a card trick the other day, and there's a paper trail of that card trick going back to Merlin. Does that mean Merlin was a wizard? I'm asking you, what access do you have? See, you know how you talked about atheists getting nervous when you talk about it? Why is it every time I ask you a question, you start fucking laughing? I'm asking you I'm asking you a serious question, and you're not even attempting. You said you have faith because of your access to the witnesses to Jesus Christ, and I'm asking you, who are those witnesses? How many times do I have to ask this?
The saints.
What saints, and how do you? How are they witnesses to Jesus Christ?
You go to the library, you pick up a book, you read what they said and what they lived and how they lived and how they died.
Which one of them was a witness to Jesus Christ?
Do you want me to name the apostles and the successors to the apostles?
I would like you to, first of all, start with Jesus and name who the witness is. Name one.
He had apostles. James, John, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew.
Now, what do you have from them that you can confirm comes from them and is in fact accurate?
The writings.
Okay, so first of all, sir, writings and oral tradition, fine. We have no idea who wrote the Gospels. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we go into the other writings where it comes from Paul and whatever, Paul never met Jesus as a living being, did he?
Yeah, he did, on the road to Damascus.
That's not Jesus as a living being, that's an apparition.
You think it wasn't Jesus?
Of course I think it wasn't Jesus.
I guess
I don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to somebody, but you do.
Yeah, I do, based on the testimony of all the witnesses. Yeah.
No. There were no witnesses to this. Paul meets this apparition on the road to Damascus, and the people accompanying him either don't see anything or can't attest to anything. There aren't witnesses for this, and you have no witnesses that you can investigate. What you have is a collection of stories that are unsourced, that keep pointing to witnesses that you don't have any ability to investigate. if someone came to you right now and said, my uncle met Jesus or met Elvis when Elvis rose from the dead, would you believe him?
No.
Okay. Why do you have a different standard for that than you do for what you're reading when this is somebody who you could in fact speak to and evaluate them personally face to face as to how reliable they are rather than an anonymous source?
Because of the way they live their lives and the way they're willing to die.
See, this is the thing. You don't know how they live their lives or how they were willing to die. Do you think people would be willing to die for something that wasn't in fact true?
Yes.
Yeah, they would. So that becomes an irrelevant factor. So how do we determine with any reliability that the stories you are putting your faith in are in fact true? I'm not saying, David, yeah. I'm not saying how do we determine whether or not those people believed it? I'm talking about whether or not it was actually true.
Yeah, there's a whole host of different kinds of evidence that come together in my mind to make it reasonable to accept the testimony of the witnesses over the 2,000 years.
Yes, thanks for telling me again for telling me what you believe, which we established 20 minutes ago, and avoiding the why at all costs.
Well, I just told you that there are a whole bunch of reasons why I believe the testimony of the witnesses. There are literally libraries full of writings by the Christian saints. If you haven't looked into it, maybe you should if you're curious, but it's very powerful and it's very convincing.
You do realize that I was a Christian for more than 25 years and that this is in fact my life's work. I don't know you. Yeah, I'm talking about why we should believe that the claims are true, not how they live their lives. Because would you acknowledge that there are people in other religions that you do not believe are true who have lived wonderful lives and credit their religion with it? Okay, so now we have
like I said,
how do we tell holy crap, how do we tell the difference between those two people? Person A from your religion and person B from some other religion. How do you tell the difference?
Well, the first and most important element is, are they talking about my God, that first cause?
Okay, we're done. God? We're done. Are they talking about my God? Talk about, I'm going to go with the one I believe in. This is the thing. If you ask John, why do you believe the Earth orbits the sun?
I don't know.
You don't know. That's an acceptable answer. Another answer, it would be to actually provide the evidence for it, the direct observations, how we got it wrong before, how we correct it in the past. Neither of us are scientists. Neither of us are going to be. Yeah, we're not going to be able to give a good answer on that. But this isn't let's orbit the Earth, or let's orbit the Sun Club. Fuck, I'm going to get it all wrong. The thing is, if this is something that you've called in to say that you believe, I'm fine with you saying you believe based on faith. I'm fine with that as, in fact, your answer. I'm going to challenge it because I don't find faith to be a reliable path to truth. There's nothing that you couldn't accept on faith. And when you say, I've read the stories of the apostles and the lives they lived, okay, but you have no idea how to determine the accuracy of those stories. And even if they lived wonderful lives, you just acknowledged that people live lives and credit their religion for good lives, even with religions that you don't think are true. There's this parade of, there must be a first cause, and therefore, which may or may not be true. But if it is, and this is why you atheists get so nervous, is because you recognize that as soon as that your model has hard determinism and no free will and no way to hold people responsible and no morality and no love, and that's just garbage. Chris Johnson was just here last week. He's got a book and a film called A Better Life, where 100 atheists speak out on joy and meaning in a life without God. The film doesn't have 100 in it, but it's culminated from those interviews. This idea that you can't have morality is something that we've addressed over and over again. There's many different models of morality. But I will say, and this isn't just a dig at him because he's a Catholic, religions raise objections to morality that they can never solve. And meanwhile, if you're going to call in to pretend that atheists have no way of reaching a moral grounding on purely secular terms, then maybe you should go over to Netflix and watch the documentary that I just watched this weekend called The Keepers, which demonstrate that the Catholic Church is a criminal organization that needs to be bankrupted at the first opportunity, and every Catholic church needs to be turned into a home for the impoverished and for children who have been abused by the people that they shuffled around and hid from police. Now, that doesn't tell my little spiel there, as accurate as it is and as applause-worthy as it was, doesn't tell you whether or not there's a God. But neither did anything that David said. Oh, well, there must be a first cause. But you know nothing. Even if you're right that there must be a first cause, you can't tell me anything about it. You have no ability to investigate it. What can you tell me about other universes? We are blocked currently and perhaps eternally from investigating beyond our universe. For most of the existence of human beings, we were blocked from investigating very much outside of the planet that we're sitting on. We've gradually increased our ability to explore, and we have better understandings, but we also don't have an explanation for origins. And the nice thing about science is it doesn't get to pretend that it does have an explanation. There's nothing within the realm of scientific inquiry that says, you know what, we aren't able to come up with a naturalistic explanation, and we've been at this for, a good 150 years or so screw it. There must be a first cause. It needs to be a personal God who's timeless, who can act outside of time, and we're going to point to the second law of thermodynamics, even in places where it doesn't apply, because we're so desperate to bolster the ideas that we believe that we're not following the evidence towards a conclusion. We are desperately trying to get all of the little factors to point to what we already believe. That's not what science does, which is why there's no Nobel Prize for demonstrating God, which is why somebody's going to call into the Atheist Experience with their personal take on what they think they can derive from quantum physics, quantum mechanics, rather than going out and demonstrating through proper channels that they have scientifically demonstrated that a God exists. I'm fine with having philosophical arguments. I'm even fine with having some scientific arguments. I try not to go too far afield of my areas of expertise, in part because, and this is why I wanted to get to specifics about the God this person believed in, if you drill down and get specifics about those gods, they are almost always in conflict with the observations that we see, the observations that would be sensible. Oh, what does your God want? He wants what is good. Okay, what's that? Is good just what you think it is? What if you and I disagree on what is good? Oh, well, God's always right. Okay, you can say that, but saying it don't make it so.
Well, and where he was going with that around the time you hung up was he went back to the uncaused first cause, and he said, but those other religions,